Welcome to our 13th TILO Presents session via the Google Hangouts on air. My name is Carrie Rasak, and I'm the Integration Specialist at Rossford Schools in Northwest Ohio, up near Toledo. And I'm going to be the moderator for today's session. So glad you all can join us, either live or recorded. Today's session features Eric Griffith from Mechanicsburg, and he will be presenting the session on Google Drawings. And I think he's got a lot of interesting new ways to use such a underutilized tool. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot myself. This session should be about 60 minutes with some time for Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, there's the chat feature on the YouTube page if you want to contribute some questions there, or you can feel free to just email me during the session. I'll be monitoring the email as well. We don't have a Google Doc set up or anything like that, or a chat outside back channel or anything like that. So any of those work, and Eric will be going through, and kind of I'll interject as needed with any pertinent questions to what he's talking about. I do want to mention, as I briefly said before, that this session will be recorded and it will be available on our TILO YouTube page for future reference and review if you want to watch it again or send it on to some of your colleagues. So without further ado, I will let Eric take over and give you some background information about himself and let him get rolling.
Great. Thank you much. Can you hear me okay? Yes? Okay. So as Carrie said, my name is Eric Griffith. I'm the Director of Information Technology for Mechanicsburg Schools. And if you're playing at the, if you're watching live on the home game, what I have set up is a couple of different cameras. So I have one set up, and I'm not sure if you can click between all the cameras and see at the bottom, or if Carrie's controlling that or not. But I'm very proud of my nerdy setup. It's multiple monitors here, and it's how I get things done as an IT director here at Mechanicsburg Schools. So I can flip back and forth to that just to give a better view of what I'm trying to do. Also, I like to do a nice sarcastic or odd glare into the camera, just like that, and that works. So anyway, as Carrie said, I've been at Mechanicsburg for about 6.5, going on 7 years now, and about 5.5 years ago, we started using Google Apps for Education, and some of the negative feedback we had was, why can't Google Apps do what, you know, Microsoft Office does, you know, as far as making things nice and cute inside a document. And so I made it my mission to try and figure out how to do that within Google Drawings. And in doing so, I figured out a lot of tips and tricks across along the way. So I'd like to share those with you now, if I could. So I'm going to share my screen here. Ooh, there we go. And I'm going to go.
I think we lost your one camera there, Eric. Here you go.
Nope, let's try that again. I'm going to click on share screen. It says you are sharing a screen. Good. That's exactly what I want to do. I'm going to move you over here for now. All right. I'm going to open up a new tab, and you should be able to see that. There we go. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is go into my Google Drive, and that's where Google Drawings is housed. Unfortunately, it has one of the, it's sort of hidden away within Google Drive. So to get to a new Google Drawing, you're going to go to Google Drive, and you're going to click on New, and then you're going to scroll down and find More. So you click on More, and then Google Drawings is right there. So I've already got a Google Drawing open. I'm going to click on Google Drawings right there. And so when you first pop up with Google Drawings, you get a blank canvas. And in this blank canvas, you should be able to see on your screen this checkerboard pattern. Whenever you see that checkerboard pattern, that means that you're looking at something that has a transparent background. And we'll get into that a little bit later during the presentation. But for now, understand that the canvas we're looking at is a transparent background. Like every Google app, you can name it. So if this is your first Google drawing ever, or maybe your second, for me it's my 964th. So I'm going to name it appropriately, Google Drawing 964, right? Because that's how many Google drawings I've made over the last 4.5 years. Okay, so a little bit about Google Drawings before we start, after we've named it. Up at the top, we have the same toolbar that you have in most drawing applications, but it's dynamic, meaning it changes as you start to insert objects. So once we start inserting objects, you're going to be able to see that here in a few minutes. So going across the top, you have print, undo, redo. You have a paint format button, as well as a zoom in, a select tool, a line tool, a shape tool, a text tool, and an image tool, and then comments. Yes, in fact, Google Drawing has comments, which is the cool part of Google Apps. It's integrated with everything. You can insert comments and work collaboratively, just like everything else. I've played tic-tac-toe with people across the board, so kind of a cool solution. So what I'm going to do is go ahead. Thank you. What I'm going to do is go ahead and start off by inserting a object right up here. And so at the top, it says shape. I'm going to click on shapes. And one of the objects I'm going to insert is just a rectangle. I'll click on rectangle, and I'm going to click and draw. Okay, so notice after I click and draw and then let go, that object that I just drew, the rectangle, changes my toolbar across the top. So by clicking on and off the toolbar, my dynamic menu up at the top changes. So it's very important for later because we have different menu options based on the object that we select. Okay, so I've got a rectangle there. You're not really impressed so far, so I'm going to have to work just a little bit harder to impress you, right? So let's insert another object into this Google drawing. Let's go to shapes, and I'm going to go ahead and insert a circle. Now, an important note, if you're just watching this and you want to work along with me, you can set up maybe a secondary monitor, sort of like what I have here, and you can easily do that by plugging in another monitor to your Chromebook or your PC, and it will extend the desktop. Or you can work on it, hit pause on this video, and then jump in and try Google Drawings on your own. But regardless, anytime you want to, you can hit pause and go back and try this on your own. So again, I've selected a shape. I'm going to go back and click a circle. Okay, click the circle. I get my crosshairs again, and again I press and hold, and I'm going to draw a circle. This time I'm going to have it overlap the corner of that rectangle, right? And the reason I'm doing that is I want to show you the power of Google Drawing, because it's an object-oriented program, meaning as I insert objects, I'm able to change the objects, move them around, and manipulate them in a certain fashion. So the first thing I'm going to do is, again, based on the object I've selected, you can definitely tell that this object, the rectangle, is behind the circle. And just to make it interesting, easier to see for those watching at home, I'm going to change the color. And to do this, I'm going to go up to the top, and we're just going to go ahead and change it to orange, right? So that way it sticks out on top. So what I'd like to do, and this is one of the skills that you need to learn with Google, and as you're teaching it to your students, you want to learn this tip or trick as well, because it's going to be beneficial as you're inserting objects and moving things around to layer them and make them work on top of each other. So if I wanted to move this circle to the very back or behind that rectangle, what I can do is right click on it. And if I'm on a Chromebook, you can take 2 fingers and tap on your trackpad, and then up pops the same menu. Okay, so right click on a Mac, I think is Control and click, and then that's going to pop up the menu. Right click on a PC is just right click. That's what I happen to be using right now, so I'm going to continue to say right click. You can also say going to bring up the menu. So anyway, I'm going to right click there, and what I want to go to is the order. I can send this backwards, or I can send it to the back. So it doesn't matter in this instance because they're both going to the same place. There's only one object behind that. So I'm going to say send backward. And as soon as I send it backward, clearly clearly it just moved back behind there. So unlike, let's say, Microsoft Paint, which if you were to draw this object and you drew an object on top of it, those objects are connected, right? It's just like painting on a canvas. You can't grab and move things around. Whereas in Google Drawing, you can grab things and move them around. They're object-oriented, right? They're shapes, okay? So something else that's kind of neat is as I insert this object, I can move it around. I can click on this object, and if I click the corners, in the corners, they're called bounding boxes, right? These little tiny boxes on the corners and on the side. Just like any other graphic design program, it's going to move it around and edit it, right? So not that impressive. Almost every program does that today. One of the other features that you can do is you can rotate it, right? So you click at the top, that little dot, and you can rotate it. So that's kind of cool too. Right, I'm going to click and rotate that back to 0. The other thing is, if I wanted to add text to this box, all I have to do is double click on it. Once I do that, I can type any old thing in there, and then it becomes part of the box, right? As I move it around, it's just a solid piece of text that is included or paired with the box. I can also go in and move it around. I can increase the font size. I can change the font size, right? I can make it any old thing I want, for example, right? So that works out well, but that's not too impressive, right? Maybe if you're going to make like a mind map or something like that, you can go through and connect these boxes, right? So let's say I did want to do that, right? I've got a bunch of objects and I want to connect them, right? I'm connecting the dots to make a mind map or trying to make a drawing or a diagram to something. If I wanted to do that, I could click on the line right here, and I'm going to go to the arrow. As soon as I click on the arrow, notice as I hover over the object, these tiny little purple dots appear around the object. If I click on that object, I can click and drag, and it's going to stick to it automatically. So if I said I wanted to stick that object to right there, the rectangle to the orange, I could do that as well. I could change the size of the orange by clicking up here at the top, right? So if I needed to make a diagram or something like that, I could very easily do that in this program. So that is kind of neat. So mind mapping would be an example that you could use this across pretty much any content area. Another example is, what if I wanted to make, for my students, a timeline? So quite often in literacy classes, you have to create a timeline for your students, and you have to say, I need to insert this, or I need to create a time here, create a time there, create a time there, and I'm just building a timeline in reference to a particular part of the story or maybe even the whole book. So if I were to create a timeline, again, I could do this collaboratively because it's a Google Doc, and you can go up to the top and share this with anybody you wanted, right? Give anybody editing rights. You can turn it in just like a Google document in Google Classroom or anything like that. So I'm going to create my timeline right here, and we're just going to call this big blue bar the timeline, okay? And I've just clicked on it, and I've manipulated it, and I've moved it around. And we need some points on this timeline, right, that are going to identify different instances in time. So there's a couple of different ways I could do that. I could make it a triangle, right, just for the heck of it. I'm going to click on the triangle button, and I'm going to click and drag, right? So I've got a little marker there, and just for the heck of it, I'll change it to orange, right? So I've got one little orange triangle there. I'm going to click and rotate that around. And here's one of the tips I've picked up over time. If I hold down my Shift key as I'm rotating, it grabs, it makes it rotate in 15-degree increments, right? So notice there how it's doing it in 15-degree increments. If I let go of that Shift key, it's doing it in exact increments. You can see that's 239 degrees. If I move a little bit more, it's 230.9. If I move it a little more, 194.8 degrees. So I'm going to hit Shift again and rotate it exactly to 180 degrees. That means it's turned all the way around. So that's going to be my first point on the time. Now, the other thing you might be noticing is on this, as you're moving objects around, these little lines pop up, right? Now, it's okay. These lines are supposed to pop up. That doesn't mean you're seeing things or you've drank too much, right? That's might be a characteristic of something else, and you should see a doctor about that if that's the case. But as you move around, you see these little lines. So if I move it here, I see that it turns red. I see another little line right as I touch the very tip of this line to my other timeline, it turns red right there. Those are called guidelines or helping lines, whatever you want to call them. They help you snap the object into place, okay? Now, that can be very easy or very comforting to use because it snaps things into place and makes them look nice. If you don't like that, you can turn those off. You can go up to View, and up at the top it says Snap to Guides. If you uncheck that button, it's going to go away and you'll never see those lines again, right? But I actually want to see these because I want to have this triangle, right? I want this to be multiple points on my timeline. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to hit Edit and Copy, and Edit and Paste, right? And then I'm going to drag this over, and I notice that I see a couple of different lines. This one right there in the center, that shows me that that object is lined up with the center of that other object, right? If I keep trying to drag that around, okay, I notice that's lined up there. Now here's something that's kind of cool too, is if I take this object and I want that one to be that far apart. I've already copied this, so I can hit Control and V, which is paste, right? And I want to make that an equal distance away from that one over there. Well, notice, here, I'll move this over here. Notice as I'm moving that, it assumes that that's what I want to do. So here, I'll move this guy down just a little bit. It assumes that's what I want to do. So as I move this over, notice those little blue lines right there. They show up and they say, oh, hey, I can do that too, right? I can line that up exactly to that exact width. So if you need to do something very exact or precise, you can do that too. Those guidelines help out. When I'm making a menu or something like that for kids or a nice professional document, I use that all the time to line up different things. So I'm going to be lazy here. I'm going to copy all of these, hit paste again, and line it up. Copy these here, and paste, and line these up again. And so I've got some pretty good timelines there. So now if I wanted to assign different pieces of text to it, so let's say that's the start of my timeline, that's the end. I can do that by going up to the text box, and I'll just start the text box here, and I'll say start. Okay. And from here I can click and move this object around, right? I can rotate the text. Again, if I hold shift, it rotates in 45-degree increments. So I can say, hey, there's the start, and I want to copy and paste. I'll move this to the very end, and I could say, hey, there's the end, right? So I can start to form my timeline, right? But I haven't oohed and awed you yet. I need to ooh and awe you with this. I feel obligated to do so. You clicked on the link and you're watching, so I'm going to give you your money's worth. You did pay for this, right? I am receiving a check. Okay, good. I was concerned there. All right, so the deal is I want to insert some graphics, right? I want to make this timeline look very professional. All right, so let's say I'm researching a book and it's on Mark Twain, and I wanted to insert pictures of Mark Twain in this timeline. Okay, so I'm going to open up a new tab and I want to grab some images. Easiest place to grab images is to go to Google. All right, so I'm going to search for Mark Twain and hit a search. And then I'm going to go over to the image section, and you can see I've got all these images of Mark Twain, right? And if I wanted to grab a young-looking picture of Mark Twain right here, I could do so. Whoops, right there. I'm going to click on that, and let's say I just wanted to, oh, that one's even better. Yeah, maybe that's Mark Twain. Maybe it's not. I don't know. He's got the, the stash in there, so I'm going to leave that in there. So there's a couple of different ways I can get this image over to Google Drawing. In fact, this works for every Google application. So here's a few more of my tips and tricks on successfully borrowing permanently images from the internet. So the first way to do this is just the very simple right click and go down to copy image. Again, right click is control and click on a Mac, two fingers and tap on a Chromebook, and you're going to get that menu. So I right clicked and I went down to copy image. I'm going to go back over to Google Drawing, I'm going to right click and hit paste, and boom, there the image is. Okay, So I can take this image and I can right click and I can move this around. So we'll stay right here at the start. Mark Twain looked like that, right? So let's use this again and let's find a Mark Twain image where he's much older, right? He doesn't look very happy there. Or there, or there. Yeah. All right, we'll use this one. So now I want to grab this image. Okay, he's much older. I could copy and paste, right? But I want to show you another tip or trick on how to do this. Once I've clicked on the image, right, and this is very important if you're doing this on Google, you want to click on the image. Once you do this, you can click and hold, left click and hold with your mouse, and this is going to take some practice to do this, right? You click and hold and notice that the object is moving around the screen. Okay, the deal is that you do not click and let go until you're ready to stick that image exactly on the spot on the page where you need it. Okay, so let's watch here first. I've got the image, I'm clicking and holding, I'm not letting go. I'm going to go over to the top of the screen and I'm going to hover over the tab that says Google Drawings. Now I'm not going to let go, because if I let go, here's what happens. It just opens that image, right? Or the web page of the image, right? I don't want that. I'm going to hit the back button. This happens almost every time in a training that I'm doing. Somebody prematurely lets go of the image, right? And it just lands and it actually tells Google that, hey, I need to open up that page, all right? So I don't want to do that. Let's grab the image, drag, hover over Google Drawing, and then we'll go back and drop. And so right there it says creating image. Kind of cool, right? You can do those, again, on any Google application, with the exception of, I think, maybe Google Sheets. I don't think Google Sheets plays like that currently due to the way it's coded, but that's okay. On just about every other application, this works out. All right, so I've clicked, I've dragged, and I've moved this around. Okay, now I'm going to, again, resize these pictures of Mark Twain, move them around. Right, and I want to move it around, make that just about the same height, right? Now here's another tip, right? If I wanted to sort of crop that image out, it's very easy to do once I've inserted an image, right? I'm going to just click on Mark Twain, right? And again, I've selected that image, and I can go up to the top and I can click crop, right? That's the old way to do it, right? I want the cool, easy way to do it, because I'm going to have to do this a lot. I want a cool way to do it. All I do is I click on the image and then I double click. And so what that does is that turns on the crop feature. So from there, I got to be very careful. I have to click right on the little cropping bars, and you see, notice as I'm dragging them in, I'm cropping. Now right there, I messed up. You see what I did? I grabbed the blue line and I meant to grab the black cropping bar. Okay. So that's what I want to do, is I want to crop the image each time. I want to crop that image down, right? I can also grab in the very center and I can move that around. Again, now's a good time to practice on this and, you know, make sure you got this down, because when you want to show this off to your colleagues or your students in your classroom, you don't want to look silly like this is your first time doing this, right? So there, I've cropped that image down. It's about the same size as the other one, maybe a little smaller there, right? I could also, to match this, could also crop his hair out just a little bit. Right, maybe make this image smaller or larger. This image also has some white on the side, so I'm going to crop that down just a little bit as well. Okay, so there you go. Those two images are about the same size, so I'm going to drag them over. And again, notice those helping lines, those guiding lines, right? Notice how they're lining it up. They're saying, hey, you want to line up with that triangle, that triangle, that triangle? Nope, I just want to make it the same, so it's in line right there all the way across. I can make him centered to the triangle, making him centered to the triangle. Okay, so kind of a neat solution, right? I can add that and insert those images, right? I could also add text. I could put some text up at the top, create some different borders. I'm sorry, I could create a border around it, or I could put a title up at the top. So it's very limited there, but it's still not cool enough, right? The reason I absolutely love Google Drawing is the reason I'm going to show you next, and that's because you can take this and you can insert transparent objects in it, okay? So let's see how this works, right? let's forget Mark Twain here. I'm going to click on Mark Twain, and I'm just going to highlight and get rid of all of my drawings there. Now, if you're thinking, well, Eric, I really wanted to save that, that's okay. You can go up, hit File and New, and you can create a new document. Okay. You also have the ability to go back to your revision history. Again, Google Drawing drank just as much Google Kool-Aid as the other Google products, so it is crammed full of all of the different add-ons and edits, right? So you can always go back into the revision history and restore it at that point. On a side note, when students collaboratively use this, you can tell all 4 of them working inside this. Maybe they have to work together to create a timeline or do something. You can see that they all collaboratively worked on this drawing document. So very cool. So what I want to do now is I want to create a header, like at the top of the screen, right? You've seen different documents. Maybe there's a header at the top of the screen. Let's see, in this example, let's see if I can turn back my guy right here. So right here at the top of the screen, there's a header on this document, right? Not the prettiest one to use as an example, but hey, it's a piece of paper that I have laying around my desk, right? So on this, what I want to do is I want to create a box across the top. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Insert, and I'm going to draw a box, right? Just like that. Like Bob Ross, going to draw a happy little box. No happy little trees, though. No trees here. So the next thing I want to do is I want to find some cool clip art, right, to put into my header, okay? So now I could go back and use Mark Twain, right, but I already used that example. I'm going to go for something else, right? This time, instead of going to Google Drawings, Google Images and searching for an image, I'm going to go to Google, or I'm going to go to a website that gives away icons, right? And it's a website called softicons.com, right? So you go to softicons.com, and this is kind of a neat and unique website because what the intention is you to search for one of these icons and then move it around on the screen and see what it looks like. So as an example, if I was creating a handout for my students and or some of my colleagues or parents or whatever, and I told them to click on the Google icon, right? I could search for Google, let's say Chrome, right? And I'll search for Chrome, and hey, there's a Chrome icon. I'm going to click on that one. Now notice when I click on this image that this moves around. Now that is not the way that images typically behave on a website, okay? I wanted to bring you to this website because there are very few websites where the images behave like this. And again, the reason is this website is for graphic designers. And it's so they can move that image around and see how it looks when they put that image over top of something else. Now, the other thing you'll notice is if I have this Chrome icon, this is kind of different, right? Typically, if you're moving around an icon like this, you typically see that white box, right? There's a white box that, ooh, that was cool. You typically see a white box, right, that goes around the image, right? And it's kind of weird because as you're moving that around, it's a white box. You don't want the white box. You just want maybe the image or the icon in the center, right? This has to do with what I mentioned in the very beginning, which is transparency, okay? So let's take a look at this. These images here, they're actually transparent, okay? So they have a transparent background. So when I put them somewhere, the application bleeds through, all right? So to illustrate this in a cool fashion, we're going to search for everybody's favorite character, or maybe just my favorite character, a minion. So I'm going to search for a minion, M-I-N-I-O-N. Search for a minion, and I get an awesome collection of minions. And let's see, what minion am I feeling I need to display today? Oh, the duck. We'll go with the duck. All right, so same deal. I can move this duck around, right? Move them around the screen. And if I wanted to permanently borrow this icon, right, and put it inside my Google drawing, I could click and drag up to the top. But notice that's not working this time. Again, there's a reason I took you to this website. That feature is not working, right? I could also right-click on it and say copy image. But the reason I brought you to this website is I want to show you the third way in which you can obtain icons or images off of website other than just clicking on insert an image, right? If I click on this, it's going to download it. So again, I'm on a Windows PC. Your download process may vary depending on the device that you're using. But I'm going to click on this guy right here. And so notice it downloads into my download bar. Okay. So I'm going to go back over to my Google Drawing, and I'm just going to click and drag and drop right there. So that was pretty easy to do. You see, I can also download those icons and drag and drop them. All right. So just as an example, I'm going to open up another tab and search for rubber duck minion. And I'll go to images, right? Because I could have gone to this website, all right? And if I click on this guy, that's the same duck, right? Maybe a little higher quality, right? Now, I can click and drag and move him over here, right? You can see that that image is a little higher quality, and so I'm going to reduce them down, and I'll make them roughly the same size, right? So what I want to illustrate in this is the difference between these two minion duck images, right? There we go. It's about the same size. So the first one was the one that we got off of softicons.com, and it's the one that's transparent, right? So the reason I did this, I'm going to click on the solid and then click black. I'm going to move this guy up here. And so notice what happens. Notice how the background sort of bleeds through, right? So I'm going to click on this guy and move him up here. And what happens? Kind of frustrating, right? This little white this little white box goes around there, and it doesn't bleed through the image. Okay, so the reason those things happen is this guy is actually called a PNG file. It stands for Post Network Graphic or something like that. It's been about 15 to 18 years since I took a graphic design course, but I'm fairly certain that's what that means. Versus this guy, which is a JPEG, right? So this is the same image, same quality, same type image that comes off of your cameras, right? So when you take an image, they have that white box around them, right? That's because it's a solid graphic. It's not transparent, right? I'm going to change this guy maybe to orange so we can see through it. Even his little hairs, do you see that? Even his little hairs show up. Somebody created this image and painfully traced all the way around it to make it look really nice, all right? This guy right here, same deal. Nope, not so much, right? It's not transparent. So I'm going to click because I don't want that. I want this to look cool, right? So I'm going to take and make my header up here at the top, and I'm going to use that graphic. So hopefully you understand why we chose the transparent background one, because we can take this and insert this into any object, any Google drawing, or I'm sorry, any other Google drawing, any Google Doc, or any Google presentation, and it's going to have that transparent background. So if you have a theme that's in, let's say, a Google presentation, it's going to bleed through and it's going to look a lot more professional, right? So there you go. I've got that graphic in there. Okay, so that's nice. And I could put some text up there, right? So if you don't follow me already on Twitter, my handle is Mr. Grifftastic, right? So let's say I wanted this to be my header. We'll say at Mr. Grifftastic. And I'm going to highlight that, and then I'll change the font. Okay. Make it look kind of cool. And I could use that, right, as my header, but that's not doing it for me. That's not cool enough, right? So if I wanted to have some cooler text up there, now again, there's nothing wrong with this. You could easily use this to text this. I'd probably highlight these and make those a little bit bigger, right? So those stick out a little bit more, right? Something like that. You could use that text and you could create your own border there. But what I want to do is something even cooler. I want to go to a website that allows you to create some really neat text, and it actually turns it into an image. All right, so let's open up a new tab and let's go to cooltext.com. Okay, so I forgot to mention this early on, but I actually went to college to be a graphic designer. And one of the reasons, you know, as I did various internships and different things like that after college, I realized I probably just was not going to be a very good graphic designer. And it's because I couldn't finish the design, right? It was finished, the client loved it, that's great, let's move on. But I personally couldn't let go. I needed to say, all right, I'm done looking at this. You know, I had to constantly tweak it, right? Maybe I should be on medication for that. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But I know I'm not a graphic designer anymore. So the deal is, this website is part of my problem, right? It is a time vampire because there are so many different settings within this website. It's going to keep you editing and changing and adjusting and doing all this stuff. So it can be kind of frustrating. But to speed things along and get this webinar going again, I'm going to just pick Keen, right? Which is one I use almost every time in a demo. Actually, I'll pick Fun this time, right? So I'll pick Fun. And really what this does is any text that you type in this document or in this little text box, it turns it into text up here, right? So I'll type in the same thing at Mr. Grifftastic, all right? Now, that font, it's not really doing it for me. So here's where we get into the dangerous part, right? If I click on font right here, I can scroll through and there are thousands upon thousands of fonts to go through and scroll through and pick and choose. We'll just choose this one. Okay, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I can use that one, right? So if I wanted to use that font, I'll say, yes, this is the one I want to use. I can also click it again and go back and choose another one. Let's try this one. It's going to work out. Yeah, I don't like that one as much. Let's go to this one. That's even worse, but that's okay. I'm done. I need to stop, right? Let's move on. Right here, something else that you can change is the text size. So I'm going to click this arrow button, and I'll make this as big as I can on the screen right there. So, all right, that's pretty big. All right, so I can also go into the shadow feature of this, and I can make this a heavy shadow, right? So it's going to put some text around there, or a light blur shadow, something like that. Can move and offset it, you know, move the shadow around if I want. So a lot of different neat options. Now, I'll also warn you down here, some of these are animated, right? So this burning one, I can't tell you how many times I've come up with funny graphics that have burning letters on them, but not all of them are going to have that transparent background like we've been talking about, right? So again, we see that checkerboard pattern. That's how we know this image is transparent, right? So that's my warning to you. This site is a time vampire. You can continue to check, oh, you know what? I really wanted to make this purple and dark purple, right? Those are the two colors I wanted to use. Choose light purple, dark purple. You can change a lot of these different colors, right? So again, time vampire, my warning to you, it happens. I hope it doesn't consume your life, right? So if I wanted to go in and I wanted to take this image, I could go to the very end and then say download, you know, follow all the instructions here. But I can also just grab the image right off the website, right? So to do that, this is just like Google Images. If I click and hold here, you see I'm moving the images around. I'm going to go back over to my Google Drawing, and I'll drop it right into there. And then I can click and adjust right there. So you see I can start to make kind of a cool header right there going across the top. Okay, so that's cool. I could have Mr. Grifftastic there. I can have, let's see, I'll insert some text, and maybe I'll put my email address, or maybe follow me on Twitter. Right, follow me on Twitter right there. I can make it italicized, something like that. Maybe I can insert another graphic, right? If I go back to my drawing or my Google Images here, and I'll search for the Twitter logo, right? I can click on just one of these little Twitter logos, and I can tell this one's transparent, right? So I can click and drag and drop. This is kind of a big image, so I got to shrink it down. Okay, shrink it down, scroll up, move it right there. right? So if I'm making like a little header or something across the bottom, top of my presentation, I can do that pretty easily, right? So I can come up and say, all right, this is my standard header that I want to use. All right, so now the other thing that I've used before, occasionally, right? Let's say if we're following the example I could use is if I wanted this orange right here, if I wanted that to be the same color red as Ohio State, right? It had to be the same exact color for some reason. I could do my best by going to ohiostate.com, right? Hopefully that's a website. Maybe I should just search for Ohio State. Oh, it's osu.edu, right? Nope, sorry. Right, I could do my best and try and, you know, look at that color and guess, right, what that exact color is. It's like, looks like maybe a dark red to me, you know, kind of close, maybe a little too red, I don't know. But if I want that to be that exact Ohio State red, there's a way to do that, all right? And this is another example of how Google Drawing is just an awesome program. It allows you to take that exact color and match it, all right? So up the top here, I have this extension installed called Eyedropper, right? And so I'll tell you what, I'm going to go to the Google App Store, or no, the, what's it called? The Web Store, right? So if you open up a new tab and you go to the Web Store and we'll type in Eyedropper, right? 2 words and you search for it. It's the very first extension there. It says Eyedropper, right? So when you click on it, and it's already added to Chrome, but when you install it, here's what this extension does. Okay, so once you get it installed, you're going to click on it once. It might take a second or two to load the first time. But then you go up to the top here. You can see I have this very elaborate pattern or palette of colors that I have stolen and obtained off of different websites, and they just continue to grow as you use them, right? But how you get that color is you click on this guy right here that says pick a color from a web page. So I click on that, and then notice down here in the bottom corner as I'm moving around, as I move my mouse over, it hovers on that exact color, right? And then it tells me what the RGB, or red, green, blue, value is. It also tells me what the hexadecimal code is, which is that little hashtag number right there, right? So you've got pound, hashtag, whatever you want to call it, and then a bunch of letters and numbers, all right? So a while back, before my time, somebody made a choice to name all 65 million colors that a computer can produce, right? Instead of being lazy and just calling it red 1, red 2, red 3, red 4, dark red 1, dark red 2, right? Instead of doing that, they came up with some crazy code, some crazy pattern called hexadecimal, right? So as I hover over this and click on it, that tells me the exact hexadecimal number that is that red, right? So to prove that I can copy that red, I'm going to click on my image. I'm going to go back up to my hexadecimal code, and I'm going to copy that BB0000. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to then click on my object, right? Now, this can't be a picture. It has to be an object that you've drawn or created using Google Shapes, or it can also be a font, right? So once I do that, I've selected it, and then I've gone over to Fill. Then I go down to Custom. Click on Custom, and boom, right there is that same value, right? That same hexadecimal code. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Paste, and you can see it just made it just ever so slightly darker, right? So I'll hit OK. And so that is how you get the exact color off of something, right? So maybe it's your school website, maybe it's a certain project you're wanting to do. However you want to do it, that's a pretty good deal to take that and copy that color, okay? So let's say I'm happy with my drawing right now, right? I want to take this and I want to click on to a new document. I want to open up Google Docs. And I'll open up Google Docs here at the top. And I want this to be my header at the top, right? I want it to be the header at the top of the page so that when, you know, somebody opens up this document, they can see, hey, that's my brand. Maybe it's a newsletter, maybe it's a parent-teacher conference, something, maybe, you know, it's letterhead you're creating. Doesn't have to look as crazy as mine. It can look a lot more professional, right? So let's say I'm happy with this. How do I get this to this document, right? So you would think that you'd just be able to click and drag and select all of that, and then go up to edit and copy, and then go over to the document and hit edit and paste, and you would think, oh, it'd work. But no, swing and a miss. Really, Google? You're just trying to do something cool, copy and paste. It doesn't do it. Why in the heck doesn't it do it, right? Kind of frustrating. All right, so let's undo. Clearly that didn't work. Let's figure out how we can copy this over. Well, Google realized that this was going to be an issue, so they created something called the web clipboard, right? So if you go up to edit and you go down here to say web clipboard, I can go over to this button which says copy shapes to web clipboard. So I'm going to click copy to web clipboard. I'm going to go back to my drawing, or I'm sorry, I'm back to my Google document. I'm going to hit edit and go down to web clipboard. And you can see I did a timeline early on, and I also did this drawing, or I'm sorry, this header I did right now. I'm going to click on that, and it pastes that object right into there. Okay, so I'm going to move this over, line it up right. Now, what's neat about this is I can click this break text button, right, and then I can move it anywhere I want. So if that is my header at the top of the screen, then I'm good. I can also paste this into the footer or the header up top there and make it be part of the header officially, right? But what's neat about this is because I copied it through web clipboard, I can go down to this edit button and boom. I just opened up a, let's call it a bastard version of Google Drawing, right? So it's this drawing, it's a version of Google Drawing inside of Google Docs. I think there's also one inside of Google Presentation. I could be wrong, but this is that same deal. So I can actually move this around, and if I said, you know what, I was way off about the Ohio State thing, I totally wanted it to be orange, right? Maybe I want to move this guy up a little bit, make that pop out. I'm going to move this down over to there, right? So if I needed to edit this in any way, I could still go back and do this, and then I could hit save and close, and then it's going to edit it, right? So built right in to Google Drawings is a smaller, maybe bastard's the wrong word, but a version of Google Drawing that is embedded inside. That's a better word. That's a school appropriate word. That is embedded inside of Google Docs, okay? So you would think, oh, cool, you know, those are linked, right? You know, it's everything in Google is linked. Well, if I go back here, no, it's not. So the deal is because we copied and pasted, it's not the same thing. You've now created a copy of that, okay? So that's the downside of that Google Drawing, right? I could also go to Insert and Drawing, right? So you think, oh, well, I saved this as a Google Drawing, right? I should be able to go to my Google Doc, go back to Insert, and insert Google Drawing, and it's going to come up as a file, and I can just insert it, right? See what that happens. Nope. There's that same embedded version of Google Drawing inside Google Docs. So no, that doesn't work. So this is really the only way to do it, is that copy and paste method, right? So kind of cool, pretty neat solution that you can copy and paste and go from one to another in order to get that done. So going back and forth, that's my suggestion on how to do it. There's a lot of different ways to use Google Drawing in the classroom. I've used two examples. One would be a timeline, right, that you could use. Another is just creating a simple header to insert into another drawing or another document, anything like that. If I went back to this drawing, right, let's say I was creating a template that I was going to send out inside my Google Classroom, right? And I'm going to cheat a little bit. This is a document that I did early on. I'm going to insert this timeline, right? And maybe this is a timeline that I want my kids to fill out, right? So I either created this in the embedded version of Google Drawing inside Google Documents, or I went into Google Drawing and I created this. But what I can say is I can tell my kids, hey, click or double click the timeline below to edit. EDIT. Timeline, one word? Yes, and it is. Yep. To edit, right? So if I'm making a template inside Google Docs, all the kids have to do is double click on this, and then they can go in and fill out a timeline. Okay, so very neat solution. I've done some professional development on how to do this specifically in Google Drawing, right? How to take a image or something like that and manipulate it, or like a graph or a diagram, insert this into Google Drawing, and then have the kids fill this out. So there's some examples of how to do that, but I think you may have the gist of how to get started with Google Drawing, making this work inside a Google document. So kind of a neat solution there. I had a couple questions that were submitted to me prior. One of them, and I'd like to answer them now, one of them was, can I use Google Draw basically as a whiteboard only on my smartboard, and will it save as I draw? So the question is, can I use it as a whiteboard? If you could, I would suggest you use the scribble tool, right? So you click on the scribble tool. Now at Mechanicsburg, we have maybe 1 or 2 smart boards that are still alive, and these, right? So I wouldn't necessarily put money up against that's going to work. But if you use the scribble tool, right, you should be able to click and hold, right, and do that, and be able to write on it. Okay, so you could use Google Drawing for that. Now I don't know if using the pens, if that would work or not. But the kind of weird thing is everything here is an object that you can move around, and you can highlight them, select them both, right click on them, and group them, you know, if you wanted to. I don't know that that would work for you. The software that I would use to do that instead is called EduCreations. That's EDU Creations. If you just Google that, it's free for teachers to use. It's an interactive whiteboard that allows you to create and draw and do things like that. So to me, that would be the better solution. The scribble feature, it really depends on how that works, how the hardware works. So maybe you have some a touchscreen device, touchscreen Chromebook. I'm not quite sure that that would work in there because of this scribble tool. So yeah, sorry, I can't help you there. But again, Google Drawing was created just to do a little bit of image editing and different things like that. So that was the first question I had. The second one is, how can this be used across content areas? So given a couple of examples already, you know, they use it as a timeline to create a timeline of events. Another neat thing was, let's see if I get rid of some of these scribbles, and I'll highlight and delete, or select and delete that. I helped a teacher create a storyboard, right? So create a couple of different squares there, copy and paste, right? See if I can copy and paste and move those over there. I'm going to select all 3 of those and shrink them down, right? And they had a storyboard that they had to create where the students had to insert images in the storyboard, right, as well as some text underneath it. Oops. As well as some text underneath it. All right, so what they did was they went into, let's say if I did this with Minions, right, and I'm going to right-click and copy, go back into Google Drawing, right-click and paste, right, and let's say this was my story and I was having creating a storyboard here, and let's see if I can find another Minion. Click this guy right here, right click, copy the image, right click and paste. And let's say this image, this minion and this minion were playing, and I could insert and create some text underneath here, right? And I could create a storyboard. I had another teacher come up with the idea to create a digital comic book, right? Where they just used each one of those cells to create different things. And one of the things that gave them idea was one of the shapes up here. So up top you have call outs, right? So if you click on a call out, you can click right there and insert this one, and then you can assign and move him over there, right? And you can double click and again add some text. Okay, so again I can click on that and adjust that there. So I could create, you know, a storyboard, a timeline, different things like that. I've had some other teachers create diagrams of houses. They had to do a layout project where they created a house. They drew this using lines. They had different things where they had to match with diagrams. So I'll clean this up again real quick here. And let's say we'll call this winter. And we'll say summer. Spring. And maybe another one. We'll say Santa. Right? So just as an example, I could use this as a matching for, let's say, some lower grade level students, right? So if I searched for winter, right, and I wanted to find an image of winter, there's a good image of winter, and I'm going to let's grab this one, drag and drop that one in there. And I'll do another one of summer. That's cheating. There's the word right in it. Maybe that one. All right. Drag and drop the image. Big image. Okay. I could, you know, crop the images down, things like this. Right? And I could have the kids work on a matching project where they had to drag and drop and place it over top of there. Now you see what just happened there? When I drug that over there, that image is behind there. So, or I'm sorry, my text box is behind there because I created it first. So what you want to do is click on all these images, right click, and order send to back, right? So as the kids are matching, they're dragging to winter. They say, oh, this is summer, and you get the idea. So they could use dragging and dropping, which has to do with, you know, understanding how to use the trackpad and hand and eye coordination. So a lot of different skill sets. I've seen teachers do that as well inside documents. They'll share that out with a grade level, and that's their project.
Hey, Eric,
yes, ma'am.
one question on that. Keep that file up while the one you just had there with the seasons.
Yes.
A question about how I noticed you're doing the quick copy, paste, or duplicate. Can you explain what you're doing with the keyboard then to quickly duplicate?
Yes, I will. Yes. So again, this is one skill set I did pick up from being a graphic designer. Okay. So if I click and hold on one of these objects, if I hold down the control button and click and drag, that creates another copy of it, right? Also, if I click and hold shift and I'm clicking, that sort of captures, that selects multiple objects, versus if I didn't hold anything down and I just clicked, it would create individual ones. So if I hold shift, that sort of selects a group of objects. And then if I hold control and drag, that's going to create a copy of it. So very good question. Yes, that should be built into my tips and tricks option there, but I do it so often I just don't think about it. It's a skill set I learned a while back, and it works on just about every application, you know, Microsoft PowerPoint to Google applications, control and shift. So good question there. So
okay, great, thanks.
yeah. So like I said, that could be the drag and drop options, which has helped out, you know, doing this, and then kids will either show the teacher, you know, they're at a younger age, they'll say, I'm done, show it, or I haven't had any teachers turn it in through Google Classroom yet, but we're getting there. You know, eventually there'll be a turn in button right there. The kid just clicks on turn in and then it gets turned in. So one other thing I'll show you here that they did add a while ago, if I click on this image and I go up here to image options, I can click up here and I can adjust the color, right? So if I said I wanted to make this green, I click on it and I can make a green beach scene, okay? Why would I want to make the beach green? I don't know, but just an option you have. You also have the ability to adjust it from a transparency view, okay? So I could put that snowman there and then overlay the springtime picture on top of it. I did have a student in a class, I thought it was really neat. He decided to, in his comic strip, one of the characters died. So he made the character transparent throughout the rest of the comic strip to show that, hey, that kid was a ghost. You know, so very neat, very creative. You can adjust the brightness, the transparency on the object. So kind of neat feature. And again, that changes based on those options there. But somebody, the last thing I'll say I'd like to plug is Eric Kurtz. So it's ERICCURTS. And if you search for Eric Kurtz, he's on the Twitters, right? If I click on that, and if I go to his website, he does private consulting. He does some YouTube training videos. But what he has created in the past couple of years is something called Control-Alt-Achieve. And one of the solutions that he had come up with was with Google Drawings. So if I go to webinars here, he's got one. If I scroll down here, Google Drawings and graphic organizers. He's got a lot of different examples, sort of like what I showed there, where they're dragging and dropping different images into a box that shows winter, summer, spring, fall. So he took a different approach to it, and I actually forgot he did that until just now, but I did want to give him credit for doing that. He's created a lot of other graphic organizers that are pretty valuable. Again, here's one that you can use for mind mapping and different things. So very neat solution. The last thing I'll show you is if you actually right-click on Google Drawing in there and you go into background, you can actually change the background to white if you just want it to be filled in, if you don't want it to be that chalkboard or checkerboard pattern. The other thing that you can do is go up to the top here and go to page setup, and you can adjust it. If I needed this to be a widescreen image, right, to fill my Chromebook, or if I needed it to be an exact size. So if I needed it to be my banner, the exact size of my header, I could click down here in the corner and do that too, and I can adjust the size of the image that I need to work on. So again, right up there, it's file, and then it's page setup, and I think that shows up on my thing. Once I've adjusted it, I can also go into custom, and I can create the exact number of pixels I need in order to get it done. So what I like about this is if I have to do a graphic and I need its a specific pixel size, I can go into Google Drawing and I can change that, the exact pixel size I need, and then I can go into File and Download, and I can download this as a JPEG as well as a PNG, which has the capability of what? Transparency. So I can use this as my image editor as well. So it's a very cool solution. So Carrie, are there any other questions about Google Drawing that I can answer for anybody?
I think that's all we have right now.
Great, great. Well, I appreciate everything that I was able to help you out with today. If you have any questions, let me bring up this one of these presentation slides. Let's see if I have my contact information there. No, I didn't. But it's basically Mr. Grifftastic@gmail. I'll bring this back up here. Or Mr. Grifftastic on Twitter is probably the best way to get a hold of me there. Or if you email me on Twitter, or if you want to email me, if you do it at work, it's Griffith griffithy@mcberg.org, or my personal email address is eric.s.griffith@gmail.com. So thanks again, and I hope you had a good time learning about Google Drawings. And yeah, hit me up on the interwebs if you have any questions. I can definitely help you out.
Okay.
Stop sharing my screen here.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Eric, for your presentation today. We really appreciate your time and all the expertise and neat ideas. I'd also like to thank the people attending. We had a few people live, and I know we'll have a lot more via recordings coming up soon. So keep that in mind. Check out our YouTube page or our TILOOhio.org website. That also has a calendar of upcoming events, and we have several new TILO Presents webinars that will be coming up in the next few weeks this spring. So lastly, I want to remind you all that you will be getting a link to the session evaluation, and I'll also have that. That's actually posted on the YouTube page as well in the comments area. So anything else you have to share, Eric, before we roll out?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Thanks again, Eric, and thank you everyone for joining in, and see you next one.
Yeah.
Thanks.